Hey, Christ Place family, thank you again for tuning in this week for our Easter week. Yesterday, you got to hear from Pastor Ben and how Jesus approached the hypocrisy that he saw throughout Israel and throughout the people that he was interacting with. And I'm so excited to open up God's Word and continue that as we celebrate Holy Tuesday. Now, this week is going to culminate into Pastor Jeff giving a devotion on Good Friday, where he will be demonstrating communion for us to have and celebrate as a family. So make sure you have your grape juice and your bread, or your grape juice and your crackers, anything to celebrate that. We invite you to do that with us on Friday. And we also encourage you to be inviting your friends and your family to join us online for our Easter services. If you need more information about that, you can go to christplace.com/live, and we can't wait to see you there and have your friends and family join us for that. As we continue on Holy Tuesday, we're going to set the scene on what has been happening so far. So Jesus has approached the fig tree, cursed it. He has cleared the temple. And in Matthew 22, we're not going to read it. We're just going to fly over it. Jesus gets pinned down by the religious leaders of the time, by the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and even the Herodians, this other political group, joins in. And they begin asking him all of these questions, trying to corner him and pin him down. And Jesus does in such beautiful fashion. He evades all of their questions, turns it back on them, and then he goes into claiming these 7 woes over the religious leaders of Israel at the time in Matthew 23. But before we read it, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever heard of the phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover? Or maybe you've heard of the phrase, looks can be deceiving. I would wager that many of us have heard of these phrases and have probably used them at some point in time. Well, these phrases perfectly describe what Jesus is saying to the religious leaders. I know growing up, one of my favorite memories was we would, going on vacation, we love barbecue restaurants, and we would always find like these top-rated barbecue restaurants in whatever place we were going to vacation in or traveling through. And here's the thing about barbecue restaurants is it's usually the hole-in-the-wall places that have the best barbecue, right? They don't look like much from the outside, but then when you step inside, man, you get some really, really good food. And we see the opposite take place in our passage. Look at Matthew 23, verse 27. This is the 6th woe out of the 7 that Jesus proclaims. He says this, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness." Verse 28, "So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness." Jesus looks at these religious leaders and say, yeah, you've got this incredible front of having it all together, this front of knowing me and loving me and living for me, but on the inside, you're dead. You are absolutely dead, like a whitewashed tomb. You know, I want to ask us this question this morning. How many of us would relate to the Pharisees and the other religious leaders in this moment? How many of us put on this front of having a relationship with Jesus? We put on this front of completing a religious checklist. We put on this front of having it all together and knowing the Lord. But in reality, we really don't. You know, American Christianity says, complete this checklist, be good, and you'll be fine. And that's the complete opposite of what Jesus dies for just a few days later on Good Friday, that we're going to talk about later. Jesus literally looks at us and says, hey, I'm not interested in your religion. I'm interested in a relationship. I'm not interested in your checklist. I want your commitment. And so I want to ask you this question this morning, church. Have you made that commitment to the Lord? If you have not given your life to Jesus Christ, you have questions about that, reach out to us. We'd love to start that dialogue. But if you have, know this, you cannot put on a front of having a relationship with Jesus. What is on the inside must come out. And now more than ever, in all the chaos and craziness that's going on, the world needs Christians to live and act like Christians, to represent the change and awesomeness that has taken place on the inside, to represent Christ to everyone around us. So I ask you that question again. Are you like the Pharisees and religious leaders in this text, or are you going to say, hey, I've got a relationship with Christ. I'm going to live that out and let God use me to change the world around me? Christ Place family, we love you. We're praying for you, and we can't wait to see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.